First thing I want to say is thank you because we just hit 200 and it makes me so happy that you want to be part of this little community of language learners. Thank you to everyone who subscribed and thank you to everyone who's been watching my videos. I do this because I like it and because I'm very passionate about these topics. And I love English, as you know, I absolutely love speaking the language, but honestly, when I get this feedback from you and your comments, it really makes me want to keep going and keep making videos because I feel like I'm really helping someone. It's just such a good feeling. But anyways, today's video is about vocabulary. I saw this video on Instagram. Basically, the video was about how when we learn languages, we always tend to translate, right? So for me with English, I would translate into Spanish. I would learn a new word and then I would be like, okay, what does this mean? And in this video, this person was talking about how this is not what you should be doing because that is going to put you in a place where when you want to speak, it's going to be so demanding for your brain because you're going to have those connections and it's going to be very difficult for you to speak. What you need to think about is the idea because it's not, you don't need to translate, you just need to understand the concept, you just need to understand what the idea is. And obviously, this is such a generalization because when it comes to learning vocabulary, it is so nuanced because what is vocabulary? When you are A1, A2 level, the experience of learning vocabulary is so different from when you get to maybe B2, C1. It's so different. And also the concept of vocabulary, it could be technical, colloquial, a formal tone, informal, neutral, also idioms, like there are so many things. But because we don't want to watch a video of me speaking for like 3 hours, we're just going to keep it short. When you learn new words, you need to understand the idea. You don't need to know the translation for every word you learn. Because if you do that, maybe you're okay with it now. But when you start speaking, writing, when you start, producing output, it is going to be a nightmare. You are going to suffer so much. So, my advice is always understand the concept, understand the idea. And if this is not clear, let me know because I could make another video about this topic specifically. Because I think no one really teaches you how to learn vocabulary, and it's such an important skill. So if this is something you would like to watch, let me know, because today we actually have a bit of a different video. It's related to vocabulary and learning vocabulary, but it's going to be ideas as to how you can practice the vocabulary you learn, because we've all been there, right? You're learning a language and you learn new words every day, but then you forget them, right? It happens and it's normal. And it happens to me, happens to you, happens to absolutely every person on planet Earth. So it's okay. But today I'm going to give you some ideas so you can work on consolidating the vocabulary you learn. And you don't need to do this with every word, but it's good practice if you maybe want to spend some time doing this. And it would be especially interesting if you do this with vocabulary that is very specific to you and vocabulary that is important and that you think you could use in everyday conversation or in the situation you need to use the language, whether that is with friends or business or travel. So always keep it very personal and keep it about you. So the first one is film yourself role playing. If you don't want to film yourself, maybe you could just record your voice. But you know, if you film yourself, you could make it like really fun. You could change clothes and have a bit of a dialogue. That would be really interesting. And obviously, you don't need to share it with anyone, just for fun. You do it and you keep it for yourself and you keep it for the memories. It could be a conversation, as I said, or it could just be you speaking about something. You can maybe try to imitate someone. Just get creative. My second suggestion is to film yourself as well, but this time try to make it a vlog. So try to do that in your target language and try maybe to explain the words you're learning. So just, go about your day and then say, so today I learned this word and this is how I would use it. Next up, we've got to write a script for an interview. You could maybe interview a celebrity, you could interview someone you look up to, you could interview anyone, okay? So someone you can relate, someone you feel close, and just write the script. And obviously, the idea is that you use the vocabulary you want to practice. So, this is going to force yourself to think of a context, because the idea is that you need to use vocabulary in context. Because if you just translate and never use that word, it is going to be really difficult for your brain to use it. It is going to be very difficult, and you will need many, many times of hearing, reading that word again until you actually end up acquiring it. But you could accelerate that process by doing these things and actually using the language. Something else that could be really fun is to write a poem, to write a story. I've actually done this myself. Well, I did English at university and we read a lot. I remember I had this module, British poetry. We were asked to write a poem. I think maybe one or two, I don't remember now, but I do remember we wrote poems in English, and it was so difficult because English poetry and Spanish poetry are very different, because English poetry plays around with phonetics, but Spanish doesn't. Like, it really doesn't. But English poetry is quite difficult in that sense. I've done more creative writing in Spanish, but I've also done a bit of creative writing in English. And I haven't done it with this purpose of me wanting to practice vocabulary. It was more just, creative. I just had an idea and I started writing, which I encourage you to do as well if you're into that. But if you're not, you could actually use this creative task to practice your vocabulary, and just think of a random story, think of a setting, think of the characters. The next one is to do this but with people. So write a collaborative story. Let's say you choose your own vocabulary and then the other person has their own vocabulary as well, and you write a little story together. That could be quite fun as well. Another idea is to design your own game using vocabulary. So obviously you've got loads of games online to learn vocabulary and to practice vocabulary. You could use this concept but make it with your own vocabulary. So the purpose is not to learn standard vocabulary that maybe is not useful for you, but use that gamification element, and maybe you could share it with someone and see if they know your vocabulary, but always make it very personal. Something I absolutely love is etymology. I'm obsessed with the origins of words, and I took Latin, I took Greek, and I loved these two subjects. I learned so much, and I truly find it fascinating just learning about where words come from and the meaning. It's just truly beautiful. So if your words are quite interesting, you could also do this and see where these words come from, what's the roots, and maybe you could share it on Reddit or a different platform. because someone could be interested in that. Personally, I would be very interested. I'll give you a personal example. So my favorite word in terms of etymology, a word that I love, is the verb recordar in Spanish. And this verb basically means to come back to the heart, which is beautiful. It's a beautiful image because cordis is the heart and then re is like to come back. So it comes back to the heart when you remember something. And last but not least, it's a personal favorite. I love writing a diary in a target language. I did that with English and I still write to this day in English. And in this case, you could write a diary entry and try to use as many words as you can. So let's say you could talk about your day, you could talk about your feelings, whatever you want to write. Doesn't matter what you write about, as long as it's about you. And then try to use as many words as you can, because you will realize that maybe if it's a verb, maybe you're not sure how to use it depending on the tense. So that's why this is useful. It makes you actually use the language in context, which is what you should be doing to acquire a second language. And those are all of the ideas we've got for today. If you like this video, let me know. And if you'd like to see more ideas and more about how to learn vocabulary, let me know as well. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.